Robert Chun never imagined that buying a storage unit full of moldy cardboard boxes for $300 would reveal secrets worth hundreds of thousands. Secrets that belonged to a decorated war hero whose family had forgotten him. Secrets that would not only save Robert's family from ruin but restore his faith in taking risks when everything seems lost. This is the story of how one man's desperation led him to discover another man's legacy, and how sometimes the endings we fear most become the beginnings we never knew we needed. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel because tomorrow I'll bring something special for you. Robert Chun wakes at 4:30 in the morning, his body refusing sleep for the third consecutive night. At 47, he looks a decade older, grief and financial stress etching lines across his face that weren't there 2 years ago when Sarah was still alive. He moves quietly through the darkened hallway of their home, careful not to wake his daughter Emily, who has a chemistry exam today, or his son Michael, whose college acceptance letters sit unopened on the kitchen counter because Robert doesn't know how to tell him they can't afford any of them. In the kitchen, Robert makes coffee in the French press Sarah loved, the one luxury item he hasn't sold yet. The foreclosure notice sits where he left it yesterday, pinned under the sugar bowl like a trapped insect. 60 days to vacate. The words blur as he stares at them, exhaustion making his vision swim. He traces the rim of Sarah's favorite mug, the one with the chipped handle she refused to throw away. She'd always said broken things could still be beautiful, still be useful. He wonders if she'd say the same about him now. The morning light creeps through the window as Robert dresses in his only remaining suit, the one he wore to Sarah's funeral and every failed job interview since. Michael appears in the kitchen doorway, tall and lean like his mother, with her same worried eyes. Another interview, Dad? Marketing analyst position at Greenfield Corporation. Robert confirms, forcing confidence into his voice. Third round interview. I think they're really considering me this time. Michael nods but doesn't quite meet his eyes. They both know how the previous interviews ended. Emily called last night. Something about her dorm deposit being due. I'll handle it, Robert says quickly. Don't worry about it. Dad, maybe I should just take a gap year. Work full-time at the grocery store. We could both contribute until things stabilize. Absolutely not. Your mother would never forgive me if I let either of you sacrifice your education because I can't figure this out. The drive to Greenfield Corporation takes him past landmarks heavy with memory. The park where he proposed to Sarah. The hospital where both children were born and where Sarah spent her final weeks. The community center where he used to coach Michael's basketball team before cancer treatment bills consumed every spare moment and dollar. Each location is a chapter in a book whose ending Robert is terrified to read. He calls Emily from the parking lot before going inside, putting on his everything's fine voice. Hey sweetheart, what's this about the dorm deposit? Dad, they sent an email saying if I don't pay by Friday, they're giving my room to someone on the wait list. Just a processing delay with the payment plan. I'll sort it out today. Are you sure? Because I could commute from Aunt Linda's apartment. She's only 40 minutes from campus. No, Emily. You worked too hard for that scholarship. You deserve the full college experience. That's what Mom wanted for you both. But Dad, I promise, Emily, everything will work out. The interview follows the now familiar script. The hiring manager, a woman roughly Robert's age, maintains a professional smile throughout, but he recognizes the subtle signs. The way she glances at her watch, the carefully worded concerns about his employment gap, the polite enthusiasm that lacks genuine warmth. Your experience is impressive, Mr. Chun, but I have to be honest. We're concerned about the 2-year gap in your resume. I was caring for my wife during her illness, Robert explains, the words still difficult to say aloud. I understand that managing my responsibilities during that time demonstrated skills in organization, prioritization, crisis management. All valuable in marketing analytics. Of course. She stands, effectively ending the interview 10 minutes early. We'll be in touch within the week. Robert sits in his car afterward, allowing himself exactly 2 minutes to feel the defeat before rebuilding his composure. His phone buzzes with a text from Michael. How did it go? Great, he types back. Very positive meeting. The lie tastes bitter but necessary. He cannot let his children see how close to the edge they're standing. He takes the long route home, postponing the moment when he'll have to maintain the pretense of hope. The spring day is beautiful, mockingly so, with cherry blossoms blooming along the roadside. Sarah loved spring. She died in autumn, surrounded by falling leaves that seemed to mirror her slow decline. As Robert approaches the junction to Route 22, a billboard catches his attention. Storage auction today. One man's trash, another's treasure. 10 a.m. sharp at Secure Lock Storage. Robert almost drives past, but something makes him slow down. Take the exit. A memory surfaces unbidden. Sarah in her hospital bed during one of her final lucid conversations, gripping his hand with surprising strength. Promise me something, Bobby. Promise you won't give up on living after I'm gone. Sometimes you have to take crazy risks to find your way back. He'd promised, though at the time he couldn't imagine what that might look like. Secure Lock Storage appears ahead, a sprawling facility of identical metal units behind chain-link fencing. The parking lot is already half full with pickup trucks and cargo vans. Robert parks his aging sedan between a commercial vehicle marked Martinez Estate Sales and a lifted Ford F-250. He checks his reflection in the rearview mirror, suddenly aware of how out of place he looks in his funeral suit among these professional buyers in work clothes and casual wear. The facility office is cramped but organized. A woman in her 50s with reading glasses hanging from a chain looks up from her computer. Name tag reads Janet, manager. Here for the auction? She asks. Robert nods. First time. How does it work? $25 registration gets you a bidder number. You can view units from outside only, no touching, no going in until you've purchased. All sales are final. Units must be cleared within 48 hours. 72 if you arrange it with me beforehand. She slides a clipboard toward him. Fair warning, sweetie. Some of these folks have been doing this for 20 years. Don't let them intimidate you into bidding more than you planned. What kind of things do people find? Robert asks as he completes the registration form. Janet shrugs. Furniture, electronics, sometimes family heirlooms people couldn't afford to keep. Sometimes junk. That's the gamble. Robert accepts bidder number 17. The registration fee leaving him with exactly $275 in his wallet. Money that was supposed to cover groceries for the next 10 days. Outside, approximately 40 people have gathered in loose clusters. Robert studies them discreetly. Mostly men and women in their 40s and 50s with the weathered look of people who work with their hands. They share cigarettes and stories with easy familiarity, clearly a regular community. A stocky man with a gray ponytail notices Robert and nods. First auction? He asks, moving closer. Robert confirms. Marcus Webb, he introduces himself. Been working estate sales for 12 years now. Got a shop over in Riverside. Robert Chin. Just exploring options. Everyone starts somewhere. Marcus gestures toward the crowd. Guy in the Carhartt jacket, that's Big Tom. Specializes in tools and equipment. Woman with the tablet, Rachel Morris. She knows vintage clothing like nobody's business. Rest are a mix of dealers and flippers. What's your specialty? Marcus asks. I don't really have one yet, Robert admits. First time doing this. A whistle cuts through the conversations. Janet stands at the front with a megaphone. All right, folks, we've got 14 units today. Same rules as always. Viewing from outside only. Minimum bids start at $50. Let's get started. The crowd moves as one toward the first row of units. Robert follows, staying near Marcus, grateful for an experienced guide in this unfamiliar world. The first unit contains bedroom furniture in decent condition. A sleigh bed, matching dressers, nightstands. The bidding quickly climbs to $600, then $900. A man in a moving company uniform wins it at $1,050. Furniture flippers, Marcus explains quietly. He'll refinish that and triple his money. The second unit holds exercise equipment, weights, a treadmill, resistance bands. It sells for $400 to a fitness equipment reseller. Robert watches these transactions with growing unease. These people know exactly what they're looking at and what it's worth. He feels hopelessly outmatched, like a novice poker player at a professional table. Units 3 through 7 follow similar patterns. Professional buyers assessing value with practiced eyes, bidding with confidence born of experience. Robert doesn't raise his paddle once, paralyzed by the recognition that he has no idea what he's doing here. Unit 8 contains children's toys and baby items. It sells for $225. Online reseller Marcus notes, "She'll clean everything, list it on marketplace platforms, probably make $800 profit." Robert's feet ache and doubt creeps in. What was he thinking, coming here with money they desperately need for food? This was reckless, irresponsible. He's considering leaving when Janet announces the next unit. Unit 23, folks. Previous renter stopped payment 8 months ago. The metal door rolls up with a harsh screech, revealing dozens of cardboard boxes stacked haphazardly from floor to ceiling. Many are water-stained, corners crumbling, packing tape yellowed with age. The crowd's energy noticeably dims. Someone chuckles. "Looks like water damage special." Another voice adds, "Probably moldy as hell in there." Marcus grimaces. "Eviction clean-out, most likely. Somebody's life swept into boxes when they couldn't pay rent." Robert steps closer, peering into the dim interior. The boxes aren't the cheap moving kind you get from liquor stores. They're sturdy archive boxes, the kind Sarah used when organizing her historical research at the university. Heavy-duty, designed to protect documents and valuables. He notices something else. Despite the water staining on some boxes, others appear carefully labeled with black marker, though he can't read the writing from this distance. Starting bid $50, Janet announces. Silence. No paddles rise. 50 going once, Janet calls, scanning the crowd with practiced patience. Robert's heart pounds. Sarah's voice echoes in his memory. Sometimes you have to take crazy risks. His hand raises before conscious thought can stop it, paddle suddenly visible. 50. Heads turn. Marcus looks at him with surprise. 50 from bidder 17, Janet confirms. Do I hear 75? Silence again. The crowd has already mentally moved to the next unit. 75, Robert calls, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. Janet blinks. 75 from bidder 17. Do I hear 100? Nothing. Going once. 100, Robert's voice cracks slightly. Marcus touches his elbow. You sure about this? Those boxes look pretty rough. I'm sure. 100 going once, going twice. 150. The words escape Robert like a prayer. Janet looks genuinely surprised now. Nobody fights over damaged box units. 150 going once, going twice. 200. Robert feels lightheaded. A murmur ripples through the crowd. This doesn't happen. 200 going once, going twice. 250. Marcus grabs Robert's arm. Man, you can't see what's in those boxes. They could be full of ruined paper. I know, Robert says, but doesn't lower his paddle. 250 going once, going twice. 300. Robert's voice is steady now, committed. Janet hesitates. Sir, are you certain? That's a lot of money for unknown contents. Robert thinks of Sarah's last words. Promise me you won't give up on living. He nods firmly. 300 going once, going twice. Sold to bidder 17. The gavel falls. $300. All the money he has except for $75 now. Money that was supposed to feed his family until his next unemployment check. The crowd disperses toward the remaining units, but Robert remains frozen, staring at his purchase. What has he done? Marcus lingers beside him. I hope there's something good in there, man. Me too, Robert whispers. Janet approaches with paperwork. You'll need to pay now, and you've got 48 hours to clear everything out. If you need an extra day, come talk to me. As Robert signs and counts out his cash, Janet studies him. First auction? Is it that obvious? She nods kindly. Most first-timers go for furniture or electronics, things they can see and assess. Nobody bids on mystery boxes, especially damaged ones. I had a feeling, Robert lies. Well, I hope that feeling pays off for you. Robert waits until the auction concludes and the crowd disperses before approaching Unit 23 again. He stands before it alone, key in hand, facing his $300 gamble. The boxes look even more daunting up close. Please, he whispers to whoever might be listening. Please let there be something in here worth finding. It's nearly 2 p.m. when Robert returns with supplies borrowed from his garage. Box cutter, work gloves, flashlight, tarp. He brought a baseball bat too, remembering Marcus's warning about rats in storage units, but mostly because its familiar weight grounds him. The metal door rolls up, flooding the space with afternoon light. The unit is indeed packed with boxes, some clearly water-damaged, others remarkably preserved. Dust motes dance in the air, and the smell is musty but not the overwhelming mold stench he feared. Robert spreads the tarp outside the unit's entrance and pulls on his gloves. His hands shake as he selects the nearest box and drags it onto the tarp. The cardboard is heavy, sturdy despite age. Robert slices carefully along the packing tape, holding his breath as he opens the flaps. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, he finds books. Not paperbacks or book club editions, but leather-bound volumes, first editions, signed copies. A complete set of Hemingway's works, each signed by the author. A first edition of To Kill a Mockingbird in pristine condition. Robert's hands tremble as he carefully removes each volume. Sarah had been a literature professor before her illness. She would have wept at finding these. He pulls another box forward, this one labeled military records in faded marker. Inside, carefully preserved in archival sleeves, he finds discharge papers, commendations, medals in presentation cases. The name appears repeatedly. Colonel James Mitchell, United States Marine Corps. Distinguished Service Cross, Silver Star, Purple Heart with 2 oak leaf clusters. This wasn't just any military career. This was a decorated war hero's legacy. Okay, Robert breathes, sitting back on his heels. Okay, this is something. The third box yields photographs in acid-free albums. Black and white images from what appears to be World War II in Korea. A young Marine in dress uniform. The same man, older now, shaking hands with President Eisenhower. Another photo shows him with President Kennedy. Later color photos show him at the Pentagon, at military ceremonies, always in uniform adorned with ribbons and medals. Box after box reveals more. Personal correspondence, letters from the battlefield carefully preserved. Military citations describing acts of valor in detail that makes Robert's breath catch. A leather-bound journal with entries spanning decades of service. Each discovery makes his heart pound harder. This isn't just valuable. This is historically significant. By the 5th box, Robert finds something extraordinary. A small wooden case containing a pistol. Not just any pistol, but a Colt 1911 with engraving on the slide. Presented to Colonel James Mitchell for extraordinary valor, Iwo Jima, 1945. The weapon is museum quality, perfectly maintained, with documentation of its provenance. Robert pulls out his phone with shaking hands and searches commemorative military pistols' value. The results make him dizzy. Similar pieces have sold at auction for $20,000 to $50,000, depending on provenance and condition. This one has impeccable provenance and appears flawless. Oh my God, he whispers. He's found something genuinely valuable. The next box contains more personal items. A Purple Heart medal in its original case. Bronze Star medals. Letters of commendation from multiple presidents. A photograph signed by Ronald Reagan. To Colonel Mitchell, with gratitude for your service to our nation. Each item represents not just monetary value but a piece of American military history. By 6 p.m., Robert has examined perhaps a quarter of the boxes. His initial investment of $300 now seems almost laughably small compared to what he's discovering. Conservative estimates put the military memorabilia alone at potentially $60,000 to $80,000 if sold through proper channels. The books represent another significant sum. And he hasn't even processed most of the boxes yet. His phone rings. Michael. Dad, where are you? We're getting worried. I'm fine, just held up with something. I'll be home soon. Did the interview go well? Is everything okay? Everything's fine. Actually, better than fine. I'll explain when I get home. After hanging up, Robert selects a few items he can't bear to leave overnight. The signed Hemingway set, one of the medals in its case, and several photographs. He carefully secures the unit and drives home, his mind racing with possibilities and questions. At home, Michael is heating frozen pizza when Robert enters carrying a box. "Dad, what is that? Where have you been?" Robert sets the box on the kitchen table, suddenly aware of how bizarre this must appear. "I bought a storage unit today at an auction." "You what?" Michael abandons the oven. "With what money?" "Money we had for groceries," Robert admits. "But look at this." He carefully removes the Hemingway set. These are signed first editions. And there's more, so much more. Military medals, historical documents, photographs with presidents. Michael sits heavily. "Dad, how much did you spend?" $300. "Dad." Michael's voice cracks with alarm and exasperation. "I know how it sounds," Robert says quickly. "But these books alone are probably worth several $1,000s. And the military items, Michael, there's a commemorative pistol from Iwo Jima that could be worth 20,000 or more." "Really?" Michael's skepticism wars with hope. "Really? I've been researching all afternoon. This stuff belonged to a Colonel James Mitchell. Decorated war hero, served with distinction for decades. His family must have abandoned this unit, but it's full of valuable historical items." Emily calls during dinner, and Robert finds himself explaining everything again. His daughter's response mirrors her brother's, initial alarm giving way to cautious optimism as Robert describes his discoveries. "Mom would have loved those books," Emily says softly. "She would have," Robert agrees, surprised by tears. "She really would have. Can you take photos and send them to me? I want to see what you found." "Of course." "And Emily, about your dorm deposit. I'll have that handled by Friday." "Are you sure, Dad? Because I can wait a semester." "No waiting, I'm sure." That evening, Robert spreads his findings across the living room floor. Michael helps, his teenage cynicism giving way to genuine interest as they examine each item. "This guy was seriously decorated," Michael observes, studying a citation for the Silver Star. "Listen to this. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action against the enemy." That's incredible. Who was he, though? Why would his family just abandon all this? "That's what I need to find out," Robert says. "There has to be a story here." The following morning, Robert returns to the storage unit at dawn with Michael. Together they establish a system. Robert opens boxes, Michael catalogs contents and repacks items in clean plastic bins borrowed from a neighbor. By midday, they've processed 20 boxes, revealing an even more impressive collection than initially apparent. "Dad, look at this," Michael calls, holding up a framed certificate. "Presidential Unit Citation signed by Harry Truman." Robert takes it carefully, reading the elaborate calligraphy and official seals. "This is from World War II," he murmurs. The battle descriptions are incredible. As they work deeper into the unit, personal documents emerge. Tax records showing Colonel Mitchell's financial status. Property deeds. Investment statements suggesting he was quite wealthy. Bank statements from the 1990s showing account balances in the high six figures. Around 2 p.m., they discover something remarkable. A box containing not military items but elegant men's accessories. Cufflinks from Tiffany's, still in original boxes. A Rolex watch in pristine condition with papers. Designer suits still in garment bags with high-end tailor labels. Several pairs of handmade Italian shoes, barely worn. "These are expensive," Michael remarks. "That watch alone is probably worth $10,000 or more." Robert sits back, surveying their progress. They've barely made it through a third of the unit's contents, yet the value of their discoveries already far exceeds his investment. More importantly, Colonel James Mitchell is emerging not just as a name but as a person. Decorated military officer, financially successful, cultured, someone who valued quality and preserved his legacy carefully. So why did his possessions end up abandoned? Michael voices the question Robert has been thinking. Maybe he had no family? Or maybe they just didn't care. As if answering the unspoken question, the next box yields personal correspondence and legal documents. Among them, Robert finds what appears to be estate papers and a will. Colonel James Mitchell died 4 years ago at age 96. The will lists 2 children, David Mitchell and Jennifer Mitchell Harrison, along with several grandchildren. So he had family, Michael notes. Then why didn't they claim this stuff? That's the mystery, Robert agrees. But these documents might help us figure it out. By late afternoon, they've transformed chaos into order. 30 clear bins line the storage unit's walls, each labeled with contents. Military medals and citations, personal correspondence, collectible books, fine accessories, business records. They've made significant progress, but at least half the unit's contents remain to be processed. We should head home, Robert says. I need to start researching how to sell this stuff properly. What about all this? Michael gestures to the remaining boxes. I'll come back tomorrow. We've got 48 hours, though Janet said I could get an extension if needed. Before leaving, Michael pulls one final box forward. This one feels different, heavier. When Robert opens it, he discovers why. Military uniforms, dress blues with all ribbons and medals attached, perfectly preserved in archival garment bags. A Marine Corps sword in an engraved scabbard. White gloves, still pristine. These would have been what he wore for ceremonial occasions, Robert breathes. Full dress uniform. They're museum quality. Dad, Michael's voice is hushed. I think we really did find something incredible here. Robert nods, carefully repacking the uniforms. Your mother used to say that everything happens for a reason. I never really believed her, but maybe she was right. On the drive home, Michael says quietly, I wasn't going to tell you, but I got into Northwestern. Full academic scholarship, but I'd need to cover room and board. Robert glances at his son, seeing Sarah's features in his profile. When did you find out? Last week. I didn't want to stress you out more. Michael, Robert's voice catches. You're going to Northwestern. However this storage unit situation works out, you're going to that school. That night, Robert begins serious research. He creates spreadsheets listing every item they've cataloged so far with estimated values based on online research and auction results. Military memorabilia, first edition books, luxury accessories, collectible weapons. Each category represents significant value. He researches authentication services, military museums, specialized auction houses. He joins online forums for military collectors, rare book dealers, estate liquidators. The learning curve is steep, but Robert discovers he has an aptitude for this research and organization, skills dormant since his marketing career ended. Around midnight, he turns his attention to finding Colonel Mitchell's family. LinkedIn reveals David Mitchell as CEO of Mitchell Defense Consulting in Alexandria, Virginia. Jennifer Mitchell Harrison appears connected to several charitable organizations in Connecticut. Both children are clearly successful, which makes the abandoned storage unit even more puzzling. Robert falls asleep at his laptop, surrounded by photos of Colonel Mitchell's life and legacy. For the first time since Sarah's death, he dreams not of loss but of possibilities, of a future that might actually be manageable. The next morning brings immediate validation. Robert had posted photos of some first edition books in a rare book collector's forum. His inbox contains 3 serious inquiries, including one offer of $4,000 for the Hemingway set alone. He responds professionally, explaining he's still cataloging and will be conducting sales through proper channels soon. He spends the day alternating between online research and returning to the storage unit. Working alone allows him to focus on the most delicate items. Military medals and citations require careful handling and authentication. He photographs each piece extensively, documenting serial numbers, engravings, any distinguishing features. Among the medals, Robert finds a Congressional Medal of Honor, the nation's highest military decoration. His hands shake as he examines it, reading the accompanying citation that describes Colonel Mitchell's actions at Chosin Reservoir during the Korean War. Actions that involved deliberately exposing himself to enemy fire to save wounded Marines. This single medal could be worth $75,000 to $100,000. Robert realizes with mounting awe. But beyond monetary value, it represents extraordinary courage and sacrifice. This belongs in a museum, he thinks, or with someone who will truly honor its significance. Late afternoon brings another significant discovery. A leather portfolio containing business documents and financial records reveals that Colonel Mitchell founded a successful defense consulting firm after retiring from active duty. The company eventually sold for substantial sums, making him independently wealthy beyond his military pension. Bank statements show charitable donations totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years. Veteran support organizations, military family assistance programs, scholarship funds for children of fallen service members. Colonel Mitchell was not just a war hero but a philanthropist dedicated to helping other military families. Among these records, Robert finds something heartbreaking. Medical documents showing Colonel Mitchell's final years battling Alzheimer's disease. Care facility records from Veterans Memorial Hospital. Letters from his children discussing his declining condition and care arrangements. The picture becomes clearer and more tragic. After his wife's death, which Robert finds documented in an obituary, Colonel Mitchell's cognitive decline accelerated. His children placed him in memory care where he lived his final 3 years, apparently unable to recognize family or recall his extraordinary life. The storage unit likely held possessions his children couldn't immediately deal with. Military items, personal effects, business records all packed away with good intentions that never materialized into action. The final piece of the puzzle appears in legal correspondence suggesting friction between David and Jennifer over their father's estate. Disputes about asset division, accusations of mismanagement, angry letters from lawyers representing each sibling. The storage unit, it seems, became a casualty of family discord, with neither child willing to address it while locked in legal battles. Robert understands this pattern too well. His own siblings barely spoke for years after their father's death over far smaller stakes. When grief combines with money and unresolved family dynamics, even precious legacies can be abandoned. That evening, Robert calls Emily with updates. "We should try to contact the family," Emily suggests after hearing about the military medals. "Some of these things, especially the Medal of Honor, should be with his descendants if possible." "I'm thinking about it," Robert admits, "but legally, the storage auction transferred ownership to me. Still, it feels wrong to profit from something like a Medal of Honor without at least offering it to his family first." "What about the other stuff, though? The books, accessories, even some of the lesser medals? Those we could sell?" "Those are more clearly commercial items," Robert agrees. "I'm researching the best ways to authenticate and sell through proper channels." Before ending the call, Emily mentions something unexpected. "I told my history professor about what you found." Without giving names or specific details, she adds quickly. "He said military memorabilia from someone of Colonel Mitchell's rank and decorations could be extraordinarily valuable, especially with proper documentation. He gave me names of appraisers who specialize in this." The conversation leaves Robert both hopeful and contemplative. The financial prospects are increasingly promising, but Colonel Mitchell's story has become personal. Through examining his possessions, Robert feels he's come to know this man, his values, his courage, his later struggles. Over the following week, Robert establishes a routine. Mornings for online research and creating potential sales listings. Afternoons at the storage unit, methodically processing remaining boxes. Evenings for inventory management and authentication research. He discovers online marketplaces for military collectibles, rare book dealers who might consign the first editions, luxury resale platforms for the accessories. The Rolex watch, after authentication by an authorized dealer, appraises at $12,000. He lists it through a reputable luxury consignment service. Within 3 days, it sells for $11,500. The funds won't be released for a week, pending buyer receipt and verification, but it's proof that his assessments are accurate. He lists several signed first editions through a rare book dealer on consignment. 2 sell within days for a combined $6,000. The military items he handles more carefully. These require specialized authentication and proper sales channels. He contacts the appraiser Emily's professor recommended, arranging for an in-person evaluation of the most significant pieces. But one discovery changes everything. In a box labeled Personal Effects, Robert finds Colonel Mitchell's personal journal, a leather-bound volume containing entries spanning from the 1940s through the early 2000s. The handwriting starts clear and strong, becoming shakier in later years, visible evidence of his declining health. Robert knows he shouldn't read it. These are private thoughts, intimate reflections. But he can't resist scanning a few entries. seeking insight into who Colonel Mitchell truly was. One entry from 1945, written shortly after the battle that earned him the Medal of Honor, stops Robert cold. Today they pinned a medal on my chest for actions I barely remember through the fog of combat. They call me a hero, but I only did what any Marine would do. The real heroes are the men who didn't come home, the ones whose names are carved on memorials instead of wearing medals. I survived, and now I must spend my life honoring their sacrifice by living worthy of this uniform. Another entry from the 1970s describes his transition to civilian business life. The consulting firm provides well for my family, but I feel most fulfilled when using these resources to help other veterans. Every scholarship funded, every family assisted, is a small repayment for the brothers I lost in combat. Later entries discuss his wife's death and his children's growing distance. Eleanor passed 2 years ago tomorrow. The children visited for the funeral but left quickly, returning to their busy lives. I don't begrudge them their success, but I feel the isolation of old age settling around me like winter fog. The medals and honors that once meant everything now sit in boxes, relics of a life that seems increasingly distant. The final legible entries, written in trembling script, break Robert's heart. My memory is failing. Names escape me, faces blur together. Soon I fear I'll forget Eleanor's voice, forget the faces of the men I served with. I've arranged my affairs as best I can, documenting where everything is stored, what matters most. I hope my children will understand the significance of these items when I'm gone, will preserve the legacy not for glory but to honor the men who gave everything. Robert closes the journal, tears streaming down his face. Colonel Mitchell spent his final coherent thoughts worrying about his legacy and hoping his possessions would be treated with respect. Instead, they ended up in an abandoned storage unit, bid on by a desperate stranger. But perhaps that's exactly what needed to happen. Perhaps Robert, who understands loss and struggle and the weight of responsibility to those who came before, is precisely who should have found these treasures. 6 weeks after purchasing Storage Unit 23, Robert's life has fundamentally transformed. His dining room has become operations headquarters for what he now calls Second Chances Estate Services. Spreadsheets track inventory, authentication processes, sales, and shipping. Most importantly, Robert has developed genuine expertise through intensive research and practical experience. The financial impact is undeniable. To date, he's sold approximately $35,000 worth of items, primarily through specialized dealers and consignment services. The Rolex, rare books, luxury accessories, and some lesser military collectibles have found new homes with appreciative collectors. This doesn't include the most significant pieces, the Medal of Honor, the commemorative Iwo Jima pistol, the highest value medals, all still awaiting final decisions on how best to handle them. Tonight, Robert sits at his kitchen table with the mortgage company's latest letter. The threatening tone now seems almost quaint. Tomorrow, he'll pay 4 months of missed mortgage payments plus penalties. Approximately $6,200 that would have been impossible 2 months ago. His phone rings with an actual human from the mortgage company, calling to discuss foreclosure proceedings. Mr. Chun, we need to arrange a timeline for vacating the property. The representative begins. Actually, I'll be paying my full arrears tomorrow plus penalties, Robert interrupts. Sir, are you aware the amount due is quite substantial? I'm aware. I'll have a cashier's check delivered to your office tomorrow. After hanging up, Robert calls Emily first. Honey, your dorm deposit is paid, and I'm sending additional funds for textbooks and whatever else you need. Dad, seriously? What happened? Your father took a chance, sweetheart, and it paid off. Michael's reaction mirrors his sister's when Robert tells him he's going to Northwestern with all expenses covered. Dad, you're sure? We can really afford this? We can really afford this. Your mother would be so proud of you. She'd be proud of you too, Michael says. You didn't give up. You took a risk when everything seemed hopeless. The conversation with Michael reveals something unexpected. His son has been researching online sales platforms and inventory management systems. Dad, I've been thinking, what you've built here, it could be a real business. Not just selling Colonel Mitchell stuff, but offering estate services to other families. You've developed expertise that people would pay for. The idea takes root immediately. Robert has already received inquiries from 3 families who heard about his work through Janet at the storage facility. People facing similar situations, estates to settle, storage units to empty, valuable items to authenticate and sell. The next week brings a pivotal appointment. Harrison Wells, the military memorabilia expert Emily's professor recommended, arrives at Robert's home. He's a distinguished man in his 70s with an encyclopedic knowledge of military history and decorations. Robert has prepared meticulously, arranging the most significant military items on his dining room table with all documentation. "May I ask how you acquired these items?" Wells inquires, examining the Medal of Honor through a jeweler's loupe. Robert explains the storage auction and subsequent discoveries. Colonel James Mitchell, Wells says thoughtfully. The name is familiar in military history circles. His actions at Chosin Reservoir are studied at the War College. This Medal of Honor is associated with one of the most remarkable small unit actions of the Korean War. Wells's assessment exceeds even Robert's optimistic estimates. The Medal of Honor, with its complete documentation and provenance, he values between $90,000 and $120,000 to serious collectors or institutions. However, Wells adds significantly, items of this historical importance should ideally be preserved in appropriate institutions. The National Museum of the Marine Corps, the Korean War Memorial Foundation, several private military museums would be honored to display this with proper attribution to Colonel Mitchell's service. The Iwo Jima commemorative pistol, Wells continues, represents another piece of significant historical value. Properly authenticated, which this clearly is, such an item could bring $50,000 to $70,000 at specialized auction. Other medals, the Silver Stars, Bronze Stars, Purple Hearts, collectively represent another $30,000 to $40,000 in value to the right buyers. But again, Wells emphasizes these aren't merely valuable objects. They're tangible connections to American military history. Every medal represents specific acts of courage and sacrifice documented in military records. You have several options, Wells explains. Private collectors would pay premium prices, particularly for the Medal of Honor and commemorative pistol. Military museums might offer less financially but would ensure the items remain accessible to the public and preserve Colonel Mitchell's legacy. Specialized auctions could potentially yield the highest returns but involve more uncertainty and fees. Wells leaves Robert with contact information for reputable auction houses, museum curators, and private collectors. He also offers a sobering piece of advice. Before you decide anything regarding the Medal of Honor, you should attempt to contact Colonel Mitchell's family. Legally, it's yours. Morally, they deserve the opportunity to know it exists and decide if they want it preserved in their family. After Wells departs, Robert sits surrounded by Colonel Mitchell's legacy, wrestling with competing considerations. The Medal of Honor alone could eliminate every debt, fund both children's educations completely, and provide a financial cushion he hasn't had in years. But selling the nation's highest military decoration to a private collector feels fundamentally wrong, like profiting from someone else's courage in a way that dishonors it. That evening, he makes a decision. The Medal of Honor, the most personal military citations, and Colonel Mitchell's dress uniforms will be offered to the family first. If they decline or cannot be located, he'll donate these items to the National Museum of the Marine Corps with full attribution. The commercial items, books, accessories, lesser collectibles, and even some duplicate medals, those he'll sell through proper channels to support his family and build his business. It's a compromise between practical necessity and moral obligation. Robert begins researching David Mitchell and Jennifer Mitchell Harrison more thoroughly. David's defense consulting firm has an impressive website featuring his credentials and client list. Government contractors, private security firms, international logistics companies. He's clearly successful and, like his father, works in the defense sector. Jennifer's name appears on boards of several veterans charities and military family support organizations, suggesting she maintains connection to her father's military legacy despite the storage unit situation. Robert drafts a carefully worded email to David Mitchell's business address. Mr. Mitchell, I recently acquired the contents of a storage unit previously registered to Colonel James Mitchell, USMC retired. Among the items were significant military decorations including your father's Medal of Honor, personal citations, uniforms, and other effects. While the storage auction legally transferred ownership to me, I believe these particular items hold family and historical significance that transcends their market value. I would like to discuss returning specific military honors to your family and ensuring your father's legacy is properly preserved. If you're interested in discussing this matter, please contact me at your convenience. Respectfully, Robert Chun, Second Chances Estate Services. The response comes within hours, not an email but a phone call. Robert's phone rings while he's photographing rare books for potential listings. The caller ID shows a Virginia area code. "This is Robert Chun," he answers. "Mr. Chun, this is David Mitchell. I just received your email about my father's belongings." His voice is controlled, but Robert detects underlying emotion. "Thank you for taking the time to call, Mr. Mitchell. Yes, well, your email was quite unexpected. I wasn't aware the storage unit had been auctioned. There seems to have been some administrative confusion between my sister and me regarding who was handling that particular matter." Robert treads carefully. "I understand these situations can be complicated, especially during estate settlement. I want you to know I've treated your father's possessions with great respect. I'm a veteran myself, Army, and I understand the significance of what I found. That's reassuring to hear." David's voice softens slightly. "Tell me, what exactly did you find?" "Military decorations and citations spanning your father's entire career," Robert explains. "His Medal of Honor and all accompanying documentation, silver stars, bronze stars, purple hearts, his dress uniforms, personal journals, photographs. Also first edition books, personal effects, business records. The storage unit was quite extensive." There's a long pause. "The Medal of Honor," David finally says. "I thought that was at my sister's house. She thought I had it. We've been so focused on other estate matters that we never properly reconciled who had what. These things happen during difficult times," Robert offers diplomatically. "I'd like to arrange a meeting if possible. There are items I believe should be returned to your family, and others we should discuss regarding proper preservation of your father's legacy." David agrees immediately to meet the following week. He'll fly to Robert City, preferring to handle this matter in person rather than through intermediaries. The intervening days bring continued progress on multiple fronts. 3 more rare books sell through the dealer for combined $8,000. Several lots of luxury accessories move through consignment for another $6,000. Robert's total sales now exceed $50,000, with perhaps another $80,000 to $100,000 in remaining inventory yet to be processed or sold. Michael has become deeply involved in the business operations, managing inventory databases and shipping logistics after school. His organizational skills and technical aptitude prove invaluable. Emily contributes remotely, researching authentication processes and market values for various categories of items. One evening, Michael observes, "This has kind of brought us together in a way we haven't been since before Mom got sick." Robert realizes his son is right. Shared purpose has replaced the heavy silence of grief that filled their home for 2 years. They're working toward something together rather than merely surviving separately under the same roof. "Your mother would love seeing us like this," Robert says, "working as a team. She always said family was strongest when united in purpose." David Mitchell arrives exactly on schedule the following Tuesday. He's a tall, broad-shouldered man in his late 50s with military bearing despite civilian attire. His handshake is firm, his eyes sharp and assessing. Robert has prepared carefully, arranging Colonel Mitchell's most significant military items respectfully on his dining room table. The Medal of Honor occupies the place of honor, surrounded by citations, photographs, and the dress uniform. David stops in the doorway, visibly affected. "That's Dad's Medal of Honor," he says quietly. "I haven't seen it since his memorial service." He approaches slowly, almost reverently. "May I?" "Of course," Robert says. David lifts the medal carefully, reading the citation that accompanies it. His eyes glisten. "I was 12 when he earned this. Old enough to understand it meant he did something incredibly brave, too young to really grasp what that meant. He risked everything to save his unit." Robert shows David through each item, sharing what he's learned about Colonel Mitchell through research and reading his journals. He describes the business success, the charitable giving, the final years struggling with Alzheimer's. David listens, occasionally adding context or memories, his professional facade cracking to reveal genuine emotion. You've treated his things with more care than his own children did, David admits painfully. That's not criticism of you, it's acknowledgement of our failure. My sister and I were so caught up in legal disputes over the estate, arguing about money and property division, that we lost sight of what actually mattered. These items, his medals, his legacy. Robert offers understanding rather than judgment. Grief affects people differently, and when combined with practical stresses of estate settlement, families often struggle. My own siblings barely spoke after our father died. It's more common than people want to admit. David nods gratefully. After Dad's funeral, Jennifer and I disagreed about almost everything. How to handle his consulting firm's remaining contracts, division of financial assets, even where to hold the memorial service. The storage unit became one more thing we couldn't agree on. She thought I should handle it, I thought she should, and so it sat there month after month while we fought over things that seem trivial now. What about the storage fees? Robert asks gently. We had them on automatic payment from the estate account, David explains. But during probate complications, that account was frozen temporarily. By the time it was resolved and we realized the payments had lapsed, apparently it was too late. The unit had already gone to auction. He looks directly at Robert. I owe you more than an explanation. I owe you gratitude. You rescued my father's legacy from our negligence. Robert retrieves a folder he's prepared. Mr. Mitchell, David, I want to return certain items to you and your sister. The Medal of Honor, obviously. His other highest valor decorations, the dress uniforms, personal journals, family photographs. These belong with his family. David stares at the folder. You're just giving these back? You paid for the unit, spent time cataloging everything. Legally, they're yours. Some things transcend legal ownership, Robert says. Your father earned these medals through courage and sacrifice. They should remain with his family or be displayed where they honor his service appropriately. The commercial items, the books and accessories I've sold or will sell, those help my family survive. But the medals? Those are about honor, not profit. David is quiet for a long moment. My father would have liked you, he finally says. You understand what mattered to him. From his briefcase, David removes an envelope. This isn't payment for the items, those are yours by right, as you said. This is from my father's estate. Jennifer and I finally settled everything last month. This represents a portion Dad designated for charitable purposes, specifically to assist military families and veterans facing hardship. Your family qualifies under those terms. Robert opens the envelope to find a check for $30,000. I can't accept this, he protests. My father's will specifically allocated funds for helping military families in need. David insists. You're a veteran who lost his wife and faced financial hardship while maintaining your family's dignity and values. You're exactly who Dad intended to help. There's one condition, though. The money is designated specifically for your children's education and your family's stability, not for business investment. Dad was adamant that military families should never have to sacrifice their children's futures. Robert's hands tremble holding the check. This is incredibly generous. This is what Dad would have wanted. David pauses. There's something else. My consulting firm works with clients who sometimes need estate services, valuation of military or political memorabilia, discreet liquidation of sensitive assets. Your expertise would be valuable. I'd like to refer clients to you if you're interested in building this into a real business. The offer represents more than income. It's professional validation and a sustainable business model beyond just selling Colonel Mitchell's remaining possessions. Before David departs, he spends an hour going through photographs and personal items, sharing stories about his father. He selects items he wants for himself and Jennifer, military citations they'll frame, photographs they'll preserve, the journals they'll read to understand their father's private thoughts. The Medal of Honor and most significant decorations, he decides after much consideration, should go to the National Museum of the Marine Corps. Dad would want them displayed where they honor not just him but all Marines who served. Can you help arrange that? Absolutely, Robert agrees. I've already contacted the museum's curator. They're very interested in acquiring Colonel Mitchell's collection with proper attribution. As David prepares to leave, he turns back. Mr. Chun, Robert. Thank you for seeing past the dollar value to the human story. You gave my father's legacy respect that his own children failed to provide. That's a debt I can never fully repay. You just did, Robert says, gesturing to the check and business card David provided. This gives my family security and purpose. That's everything. After David leaves, Robert sits alone with the items designated for return to the Mitchell family. He carefully packs the Medal of Honor, the dress uniforms, the personal journals. These will go to David's office next week via insured courier. The remaining commercial inventory represents perhaps 60,000 more in potential sales, enough to establish genuine financial stability and invest in proper business infrastructure. That evening, Robert drives to Sarah's grave for the first time in months. He brings fresh flowers and the business card for Second Chance's estate services that Michael designed. Standing beside her headstone, he speaks aloud. I kept my promise, Sarah. The kids are safe. Emily's at school, Michael's going to Northwestern. We're going to be okay. The simple marker bears her name, dates, and beloved wife and mother. They couldn't afford elaborate memorialization when she died. Robert traces the carved letters. I'm going to upgrade this, he tells her. Something with that quote you loved about hope being the thing with feathers. And I want to thank you for pushing me to take risks. That storage unit, Sarah, it saved us. But more than that, it gave me purpose again. He imagines her response, her gentle laugh, the way she'd squeeze his hand. For the first time, the memory brings more joy than pain. I met a man through his possessions, Robert continues. Colonel James Mitchell. War hero, businessman, philanthropist. He lost his wife too, struggled with illness at the end, worried about his legacy. His children made mistakes just like people do. But his story intersected with ours at exactly the right moment. I helped preserve his legacy, and in return, his belongings saved our family. The one-sided conversation continues for nearly an hour. Robert sharing details about the business he's building, the children's reactions, his plans for the future. It feels healing, connecting his new path to the love that sustained him through Sarah's illness and death. I'm not just surviving anymore, he concludes. I'm building something meaningful. And it started because I heard your voice telling me to take a chance when I had nothing left to lose. Over the following months, Second Chance's estate services evolves from desperate survival tactic to legitimate enterprise. Robert rents a small office space, properly equipped for inventory management, photography, and client consultations. He hires a part-time assistant to handle shipping and administrative tasks. Most significantly, referrals from David Mitchell bring clients seeking similar services. The first referral is a widow whose husband's military career and collectibles need respectful liquidation. Robert's sensitivity to her emotional state, combined with his expertise in military memorabilia, results in successful sales that exceed her expectations and preserve her husband's dignity. She refers him to 3 friends in similar situations. The second major client is an estate attorney handling a complicated probate case involving a deceased collector's extensive holdings. Robert's thorough documentation and ethical practices impress the attorney, who begins regular referrals. By the 6-month anniversary of purchasing Storage Unit 23, Robert's business grosses over $200,000, with approximately 40% profit after expenses. He's hired Michael part-time and arranged for Emily to work remotely during summer break. The family business has become a source of pride and purpose for all 3 of them. The final items from Colonel Mitchell's collection go to their intended destinations. The Medal of Honor and highest decorations are formally donated to the National Museum of the Marine Corps in a ceremony attended by David, Jennifer, their families, and Robert's family. The museum curator delivers a moving speech about Colonel Mitchell's service and sacrifice, with special acknowledgement to Robert for preserving and donating these treasures. Several rare books go to university libraries, with Colonel Mitchell's name attached to special collections. Personal papers and photographs are archived at the Marine Corps History Division. The commemorative Iwo Jima pistol sells at specialized auction for $68,000 to a private collector who commits to eventually donating it to a military museum. 1 year after that desperate morning when Robert bid on a storage unit full of damaged boxes, he stands in his new office reviewing business projections with Michael. The walls display framed certificates of appreciation from museums and families he's helped, alongside a shadow box containing a replica of Colonel Mitchell's Medal of Honor. "You know what's amazing?" Michael observes. "A year ago we were about to lose everything. Now we have a real business, both of us are in college, and you're helping other families going through what we went through. Your mother always said that endings and beginnings are often the same moment." Robert reflects. "We just can't see it at the time. Finding Colonel Mitchell's possessions was the ending of our crisis and the beginning of our purpose." Emily calls during their meeting, excited about an internship she's secured at a museum's acquisitions department. "They specifically mentioned your work with the Mitchell collection, Dad," she says. "The curator said my understanding of provenance and ethical collection practices impressed them." "Your father's daughter," Robert says proudly, "using what we learned to help preserve history." That evening, Robert receives an unexpected package. Inside is a photograph he hadn't seen before, showing Colonel Mitchell in his dress uniform, circa 1990, standing beside his wife Eleanor at what appears to be a Marine Corps ball. They're both smiling, his arm around her waist, medals gleaming on his chest. A note accompanies it in David's handwriting. "Found this while sorting through Jennifer's collection of Dad's photos. Thought you should have it for your office. Dad spent his life serving others and helping military families. In a strange way, his final act of service was helping your family when you needed it most. That's a legacy worth honoring. Thank you for making sure his story didn't end in an abandoned storage unit." Robert frames the photograph and hangs it beside the replica Medal of Honor. Every day, Colonel Mitchell's image reminds him of interconnected legacies and second chances. Two men who never met, separated by generation and circumstance, connected through courage, both understood that sometimes you have to risk everything to save what matters most. On the first anniversary of Sarah's death, Robert takes Michael and Emily back to her grave. The upgraded memorial stone is now installed, featuring her favorite quote. "Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all." They stand together, the three of them, no longer drowning in grief but learning to carry it with grace. "Dad," Emily says softly, "do you think Mom somehow knew you'd find that storage unit when you needed it most?" "I don't know if she knew specifically," Robert answers, "but she knew I needed to keep taking chances, keep believing that desperation could transform into opportunity. That storage unit was my chance. Colonel Mitchell's abandoned possessions became our salvation." Michael adds, "And now we help other families find their chances. That's what the business really is, right? Giving people hope that their endings can become new beginnings." "Exactly," Robert agrees. "We honor both the stories of what was and create possibilities for what can be. That's what Colonel Mitchell did his whole life. Serve, sacrifice, help others. His final service was helping us when we needed it most, even though he never knew we existed." As they leave the cemetery, Robert feels Sarah's presence not as painful absence but as enduring influence. She taught him about courage during her illness, about love in the face of loss, about hope when circumstances seemed hopeless. Those lessons led him to take a $300 gamble on a storage unit full of moldy boxes that nobody else wanted. That gamble revealed treasures both material and spiritual. Financial salvation, yes, but more importantly, renewed purpose and the ability to help others facing similar struggles. Second Chances Estate Services now assists dozens of families annually, helping them navigate the complex emotional and practical challenges of estate liquidation while preserving dignity and honoring legacies. Robert often thinks about the chain of events that brought him to that storage auction. Sarah's death forcing financial crisis, the failed job interviews creating desperation, the billboard glimpsed at exactly the right moment, the impulsive decision to take that exit. Any different choice at any point would have led somewhere else entirely. But he made the choices he made, took the risk he took, and found exactly what he needed when he needed it most. Not just valuable items to sell, but a man's legacy to honor and a purpose to embrace. Colonel James Mitchell's story didn't end in an abandoned storage unit after all. It continued through Robert's family, through the museum visitors who see his medals and learn about his service, through the family's second chances helps navigate their own difficult transitions. His legacy of service and sacrifice extends beyond his lifetime, touching lives he never knew, creating ripples that spread outward in ways he never imagined. And Robert's story didn't end in foreclosure and despair. It transformed into something new, built on the foundation of taking chances when everything seemed lost. Both men, in their own ways, understood that courage isn't the absence of fear but acting despite it. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is risk our last resources on an uncertain gamble, trusting that hope and determination matter more than guaranteed outcomes. As Robert closes his office that evening, he pauses at the photograph of Colonel Mitchell and Eleanor, remembering all the lives that touched his through those moldy cardboard boxes. A war hero's courage, a widow's determination, children learning to honor their father's legacy, and families finding help during their darkest moments. All connected through one desperate man's decision to bid on a storage unit nobody else wanted. $300. That's what it costs to discover that endings and beginnings are indeed the same moment, that other people's forgotten treasures can become your salvation, and that taking chances when you have nothing left to lose sometimes leads exactly where you need to go. Robert locks the door and heads home to his children, to the life they've built together from moldy boxes and memories, from a stranger's abandoned legacy and their own determination to honor it properly. The foreclosure notice is long gone, replaced by business plans and college acceptance letters, and hope for a future that seemed impossible 1 year ago. Sometimes, he thinks as he drives through the spring evening, the things we need most come wrapped in the least likely packages. Storage units full of water-damaged boxes, military medals earned by strangers, love letters written decades ago, journals documenting lives we never knew, each containing seeds of possibility for whoever has courage enough to look beyond the surface to the stories waiting inside. Colonel James Mitchell served his country with extraordinary valor and spent his civilian life helping military families in need. His final act of service, performed unknowingly from beyond the grave, was saving one more veteran's family when they had nowhere left to turn. That's a legacy that transcends any medal or commendation. A legacy of service that never ends but continues blessing lives in ways both mysterious and profound. Robert pulls into his driveway where Michael is shooting baskets and Emily sits on the porch doing homework. His children safe and thriving. His business growing and meaningful. His purpose renewed and clear. All because one desperate morning he took a chance on a storage unit full of someone else's forgotten life and discovered that sometimes the treasures we need most aren't the ones we're looking for, but the ones that find us exactly when we need them most. The evening sun casts long shadows across the yard as Robert joins his children, grateful for second chances, for courage borrowed from strangers, and for the truth that hope really is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and never stops singing. Even in the darkest moments, even when all seems lost, never stops at all.